The clock read 12:03 a.m. when my phone rang. I barely recognized the ringtone I had set years ago. The sound felt intrusive in the stillness of our bedroom. My husband was asleep beside me, unaware of the storm about to hit. I answered, heart pounding. "Hello." On the other end, my boss's voice was strained, almost breaking. "We've had a serious breach. The project details. They're out there." A chill ran down my spine. This was no ordinary late-night call. It was a crisis. Investors were panicking, the stock had already dipped, and our credibility was on the line. "Do you have any idea who I asked?" "No. That's why I need you," he said. "I need you to find out before it's too late." I didn't hesitate. I dove in head first, knowing that failure wasn't an option. But it wasn't straightforward. Every lead turned into a dead end. Emails had been cleverly masked, access logs, manipulated, and insiders tight-lipped. I had to outsmart someone who knew the system better than most of us. Night after night, I worked under the dim glow of my desk lamp, fueled by caffeine and sheer determination. I pieced together fragments: an unusual login at 2 a.m., a deleted message chain, whispers from colleagues too scared to talk. It became a complex web of deceit, and every thread I pulled tightened the pressure on me. Meanwhile, at home, the late nights were taking their toll. My husband started noticing his brow furrowed with suspicion. "Are you seeing someone?" he asked one evening, the accusation barely masked in concern. I froze. The words hung heavy between us. I wanted to scream to explain, but the last thing I could do was expose the details of the investigation. "It's just work," I said quietly, though even I could hear the uncertainty in my voice. Tension seeped into every conversation. Dinners were silent, and the bed that had once been our refuge felt cold. I could see the doubt in his eyes, the unspoken question, "Can I trust you?" It was crushing, almost as unbearable as the impossible task at work. Finally, after sleepless nights and countless dead ends, I uncovered him, the traitor. Not a mastermind, but clever enough to nearly ruin us all. My heart pounded as I sent the evidence to my boss. Relief, finally, but it was short-lived. The project stabilized, the stock recovered, yet recognition didn't come. Whispers reached me, suggestions that I might have been involved in the leak. The scapegoat I had found was now seen as the fall guy, and trust in me quietly eroded. Sitting alone in the kitchen that night, I stared at my untouched coffee. The weight of suspicion at home and at work pressed down, but deep inside, I knew I had done the right thing. I had saved the company, but at what cost tomorrow? I vowed I would continue fighting, but not for their approval, for myself, and for the love I still clung to at home. The days that followed were a blur of emails, meetings, and endless calls. The crisis at work had stabilized, yet instead of relief, a new tension had settled, in one that no corporate memo could address. At home, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken questions. My husband's eyes followed me more than usual. Every early departure, every late return, every hushed phone conversation seemed to fuel the fire of his doubt. "You're hiding something," he said one night, his voice low but sharp. "Is it someone else?" I froze, feeling the sting of accusation. It wasn't that I had anything to hide. My life was entirely consumed by work, but I couldn't reveal the confidential details of the investigation. "It's just work," I whispered, trying to keep my voice calm, but the tension between us seemed to thicken with each passing day. Evenings that had once been quiet and comforting became arenas for silent judgment. I could feel his suspicion pressing on me, a constant weight on my chest. I had spent weeks saving the company, tracing a traitor who nearly destroyed everything, yet at home, my husband's trust wavered. I wanted to scream to prove my devotion, but every explanation felt inadequate, every gesture dismissed. At work, things were no better. Despite my success, the recognition I had expected didn't materialize. Raises, promotions, and even a word of praise were conspicuously absent. Rumors swirled suggesting that the leak might have been my fault, that the person I uncovered was merely a scapegoat. The very trust I had relied upon to lead projects and make critical decisions was gone. Meetings I would have chaired were led by others. Emails I would have signed were sent by different hands. I felt like a ghost in my own career, performing the motions without the authority or acknowledgement that should have followed. The work I had loved, the challenges I had thrived on, were now hollow. Yet I persevered, not for accolades, not for validation, but because I couldn't let the company falter, and because deep down, I knew my own standards demanded it. The strain at home worsened as I tried to navigate this professional limbo. One night after another, long day of unraveling minor discrepancies and patching fragile systems, my husband's patience snapped. "I can't believe how much time you spend at work," he said, voice tight with frustration. "I don't know who you are anymore. I feel like I've lost you." His words cut deeper than any corporate critique. I looked at him exhausted and vulnerable. I wanted him to understand, but how could I convey the chaos I had endured, the sleepless nights, the constant pressure to protect a company that didn't trust me? Tears welled up, but I swallowed them. "I haven't changed," I said softly. "I'm still the same person. I have responsibilities that I can't ignore." And yet, even as we spoke, I realized that some things had shifted irreversibly. The delicate balance between my career and my personal life had been tested to its limits. Trust, once assumed, had to be rebuilt at home and at work. By the time I turned off the lights that night, I knew one thing: I would endure the doubt, the suspicion, the unfairness, but I would not let it define me. I had to find a way to reclaim control both of my career and of the love I so fiercely protected. The day the promotion list was posted, I braced myself for a sense of accomplishment. Weeks of sleepless nights, endless investigations, and unwavering dedication had finally stabilized the company after the leak. Surely recognition was due. Surely my efforts would be acknowledged. Yet when I scanned the list, my stomach sank. My name was absent. Not a word about the raise I had anticipated, not a single acknowledgement of my role in averting disaster. The project I had saved, the trust I had restored, none of it seemed to matter. Whispers among colleagues were faint but clear doubts, rumors, and subtle insinuations that I might have been involved in the leak. The very people I had protected, the executives who had leaned on me for solutions, now regarded me with quiet skepticism. Authority I had once held was silently stripped away. Projects I would have led were reassigned critical decisions made without my input. My workspace, once a hub of activity, now felt like a holding cell, a place to pass time without influence. At home, my husband noticed the shift in my demeanor. "They don't value you," he said one evening, frustration edged with sadness. "After everything you've done, they treat you like an intern." I nodded silently, biting back the bitterness. Words would not capture the full weight of my disappointment. I had given my all, and the company had given nothing in return, not recognition, not trust, not respect. I felt invisible in the place where I had once been essential. Each day became a test of endurance. Tasks that once challenged me now felt trivial, like exercises in futility. I watched others receive accolades for minor contributions, while my achievements were erased from memory. The betrayal wasn't loud, it was subtle, a quiet erosion of trust, a slow removal from the work I had loved. But I was not broken. I continued performing with precision, completing assignments efficiently, silently proving that my capabilities were intact. Yet, in the back of my mind, a difficult truth settled loyalty to a place that no longer recognized. It was a chain I no longer wanted to wear. That night, I reflected on the irony. I had fought for the company, saved its reputation, endured sleepless nights, and navigated impossible challenges. And yet the reward was absence, the absence of respect, the absence of trust, the absence of acknowledgement. Something inside me shifted. I realized that my worth was not dictated by the approval of those who had lost sight of it. I could continue to serve a company that no longer valued me, or I could reclaim my life on my own terms. I decided it was time to pause, to step back, and to reconsider what truly mattered. Recognition could wait, or perhaps it would never come, but integrity, self-respect, and balance were non-negotiable. For the first time in months, I allowed myself a quiet resolve. I would leave not in anger, but in clarity. I would not be invisible, and I would not sacrifice my sense of self for those who had already taken it for granted. The morning I handed in my resignation, the office seemed almost surreal. The familiar hum of computers, the low murmur of colleagues, the fluorescent lights overhead, it all felt like a scene I was watching from a distance. I had loved this place once. I had poured every ounce of energy, every sleepless night, every meticulous detail into making it succeed. But love alone couldn't erase the betrayal, the subtle erosion of trust, and the hollow acknowledgement of my efforts. "Are you sure about this?" my boss asked, his tone cautious, almost hesitant. He had once relied on me to solve crises, to untangle impossible problems, yet now there was an unspoken relief in my departure. I nodded. Yes, I need to step away. Almost immediately, offers flooded in. Competitors, startups, even old acquaintances from the industry reached out, eager to have me on their team. The promises were tempting: higher salaries, greater influence, autonomy to lead important projects. My phone buzzed constantly, emails stacked like a tower of opportunities. But as I read each one, I realized that the allure of prestige and pay could not outweigh the simple yet profound need for balance. I chose to decline, at least for now. Instead, I allowed myself a pause, a time to breathe, to reconnect, to remember life beyond spreadsheets and deadlines. I rediscovered mornings with sunlight filtering through the blinds, leisurely walks through my neighborhood dinners with my husband that weren't interrupted by urgent calls or stress. I began noticing neighbors' smiles, children playing in the street, the small but meaningful rhythms of ordinary life I had long ignored. During this period of reflection, I understood something fundamental: success isn't only measured in accolades, bonuses, or titles. There is value in being present, in nurturing relationships, in finding joy in small moments that work often steals away. My husband and I began talking, really talking, sharing our worries, our laughter, our frustrations. The silence of suspicion that had hung over us slowly lifted, replaced by trust, patience, and mutual respect. Work could wait. My life, my happiness, and the connections I had neglected could not. I learned to set boundaries, to honor my own needs alongside my professional ambitions. It was liberating, almost revolutionary, to prioritize myself without guilt. Yet even in this pause, a part of me remained alert, quietly aware that opportunities would come again. And when they did, I would return, not as the woman who sacrificed everything for validation, but as someone who knew her worth, who had chosen her path with clarity and intention. For the first time in months, I felt the comforting weight of control in my own hands. Leaving had not been a defeat, it was a declaration, a promise to myself that my life would not be defined by others' judgments, but by my own choices. Months had passed since I stepped away from the chaos of my former company. The time off had been more than a break, it was a reset. I had rediscovered mornings with sunlight streaming through the kitchen window, evenings with leisurely walks beside my husband, and quiet nights where conversations weren't shadowed by stress or suspicion. Life had a rhythm again, one I hadn't realized I was missing. When I finally returned to work, it was with intention. Offers had come from competitors and startups, promising higher salaries, more influence, even leadership roles. But I chose carefully seeking a place where my contributions would be valued and where I could maintain the balance I had fought so hard to reclaim. My approach to work had changed. I was diligent, strategic, and ambitious, yet I no longer sacrificed my health, my marriage, or my peace of mind for recognition that wasn't guaranteed. Then one night, as I was settling into bed, my phone rang. The screen displayed a name I hadn't expected to see again, my former boss. My heart sank, a mix of curiosity and caution flooding me. "Can we talk?" he asked, voice heavy with regret. "I shouldn't have doubted you. You were the one who saved us when no one else could. And I should have seen it sooner." I listened quietly as he admitted his mistakes, his tone carrying the weight of sleepless nights and endless worry over the company's setbacks since I left. He confessed how much he had hoped I would return, acknowledging the trust he had broken and the respect he had failed to show. His words were sincere, but they came too late. I had already chosen a different path, one where my worth was recognized, my boundaries respected, and my life balanced. The contrast with my former company was undeniable. Morale was low, the spirit of collaboration had faded, and subtle mistrust lingered in the air. Even though my old boss now openly regretted his past mistakes and longed for my return, I knew that going back would mean giving up the balance and clarity I had fought so hard to reclaim. In my new office, the difference was immediate. Colleagues respected boundaries. Leadership appreciated results, not just availability. I had a seat at the table, a voice that mattered, and evenings and weekends that belonged to me. For the first time, work felt like a partnership, not a battleground for approval. Even so, I carried no bitterness. The experiences, painful as they were, had shaped me. I was sharper, wiser, and more attuned to the things that truly mattered. At home, my husband and I laughed more freely, spoke more openly, and shared the quiet joy of ordinary moments. Work no longer consumed me. Instead, it became a channel for creativity, collaboration, and purpose. I realized that success wasn't defined by surviving office politics or chasing recognition. It was about reclaiming control, making choices aligned with my values, and cultivating the life I wanted to lead. Every project, every challenge now came with a sense of agency. I was no longer a player in someone else's story. I was the author of my own. The morning sun poured through the office windows, bathing the room in a warm golden glow. I sat at my desk, a sense of calm and purpose settling over me like a soft blanket. The challenges and hardships of the past seemed distant now, like shadows fading at the break of day. I had arrived not just at a new job, but at a new understanding of myself. The memory of that late-night call from my former boss lingered. His voice, heavy with regret and longing, had confessed mistakes he could not undo. For a moment, it had stirred a flicker of old loyalty and emotion within me, but I recognized that my life and my choices now belonged solely to me. The path I had chosen, one of balance, respect, and integrity, was not something I could trade for nostalgia or apologies. In my current role, everything felt aligned. Colleagues respected boundaries. Leadership valued results, not just endless hours. I had a voice that mattered, authority to make decisions, and evenings and weekends that truly belonged to me. Work no longer consumed my life, it complemented it. Every challenge became an opportunity to grow, not a battle for recognition. At home, my husband and I thrived in the quiet intimacy that had been missing for so long. Laughter returned to our dinner's walks, became our sanctuary, and our conversations were honest, patient, and joyful. The pressure, suspicion, and doubt that had once shadowed our lives had been replaced by trust and shared strength. the past painful, challenging, and formative no longer held power over me. It had shaped me, yes, but it did not define me. I had proven to myself that my worth was independent of others' validation, that success could coexist with happiness, and that integrity and balance were stronger currencies than accolades or titles. Looking out the window at the city below, a quiet exhilaration washed over me. The world was vast, full of opportunities, and entirely mine to approach on my own terms. I felt in control of my work, my life, and my destiny in a way I never had before. I closed my laptop with a soft click and stood tall in the office's warm light. The dawn had come, not just a new day, but a new chapter, one filled with promise, purpose, and possibility. I was no longer merely surviving. I was thriving, fully present, fully alive, and entirely in charge of the story I was writing.